About 5.5 years ago, Bobby and I met, and we were pretty nerdy about bolts. So we bought about several $1,000s worth of bolts, and Larry, who I lived with for a while, helped me make this bolt buster stand in order for us to pull bolts straight out of the ruck. Now it holds my laptop to tell me what to say next to a video. And we tested 400 or 500 bolts, can all be found in the Bolting Bible, which is a book we worked on together to help culminate all the information that we got through that and just how to bolt in general. But there was an underlying problem in all of it, that you have all this information get you stoked about how to bolt correctly, you know how to bolt correctly, but there's no way to, like, what do you get? Where do you get it? And that's why the buying guides in the Bolting Bible sucked. They weren't really helpful. All is in Europe, or they don't have enough of it, or it's expensive, or the customer service sucks, or you can't get it, or they don't make a solution for the problem you had. And so for the last year and a half since I started hownoto.com, one of my things I spend my entire evening working on after working all day is trying to source a solution to every problem. And this video is a guide into everything we have now. It took an entire day to pick one of every item that we have in the shop in order to show you guys how to navigate all the options that we have.
We're going to talk about glue-in bolts, wedge bolts, sleeve bolts, hangers, quick links, rings, specialty things. We're going to start with glue-ins.
So we have Lapas glue-in bolts, Team Tough crossover bolts, Climbing Taiwan's U-shaped bolt, Romer's bolts, and Titan Climbing's bolts. Now I get asked, how big of a hole do you need for a 10mm glue-in? Because if you have a 10mm wedge bolt, you need a 10mm hole or it will literally fall out. Well, you need some room for the glue. And in most of the cases here, a 10mm glue-in requires a typically 12mm hole for glue to be able to surround that. So the 12mm glue-ins need approximately a 14mm hole, except for where it doesn't. The crossover bolt is called a 1/2" glue-in and it requires a 1/2" hole. So good luck remembering all that. Some of these glue-ins only require a 3/8" hole or a 10mm hole. Okay, I'm gonna be throwing a lot of information your way, and I want you to know about bolts more than you do. So we made a quiz on the website where you can go after this video and see how much of this you remember. And for every question you get right, you get 1 point, which you can exchange for store credit. I'm literally paying you to learn instead of charging you for a course. Our friend Martin in the UK makes some of the nicest bolts I've ever seen, and they're all titanium bolts that he does. Now he uses grade 2 titanium and he's really nerdy about it, but these are Eterna bolts. And they're P-shaped bolts, and he has 12mm and 14mm. They go in very easily until they don't, and then you just tap in the last part for a tight tolerance. So if it's in an overhanging route or something, they're not gonna fall out while you're waiting for the glue to cure. And in some places, it can be appropriate to use U-shaped bolts, and so he has 2 different lengths of U-shaped bolts that he has. Now, this is a funny looking quick link, but that is the best way to hold your ring master point, that's also titanium, for these anchors. Now U-shapes are less common because they require 2 holes and twice as much glue, but it is only a 10mm or 3/8" hole. So these crossover bolts from Team Tough have quite a tight tolerance inside of a 1/2" hole, and they are UI rated for 35 kilonewtons, damn. And they're kind of hard to get in, which is a benefit to them sort of expanding as they go in case you don't trust the glue, but it also is great when you try to put it in something that's steep because it's definitely not coming out. I think they hold like 2K in if you have no glue. The next bolts are Romer. This is 12mm. This is big, fat, and long for big projects that are gonna maybe have a lot of force on them, like high lines. But you don't necessarily need something like this even in highlining today. But anyways, we got 2 different lengths of this. We have a 10mm that goes in a 12mm hole, and we have an 8mm that goes in a 10mm hole. And this is UIA rated, even though it looks pretty tiny. And if you don't like P-shaped bolts, for I don't know why, but we have this shape, which is also similar to this shape. But this is thicker, this is insanely strong, and we got some sick slow-mo when we tested these in a random place in Nevada a year or 2 ago. So our biggest supplier is Lapas Climbing. and he's based out of Greece, and his family started a stainless steel kitchen company years ago. So he grew up with stainless, and he knows it really, really well, and he's jacked on climbing. So he likes to make a lot of climbing products out of stainless. Now we have 3 glue-ins mainly from him, full product lines, but the Meteoras used to be the cheapest glue-in bolts we had until he made the corkscrews, until Climbing Taiwan made this. We're constantly looking for a cheaper glue-in. However, this is more of a specialty, and if you want just kind of a normal glue-in, then you would potentially use corkscrew or Meteora. Now, the arrows are a little bit more expensive, but they are very strong. We pulled them in our machine, and it broke things it wasn't supposed to. Notice this bolt may or may not have been inspired by somebody else's bolt, but it is stainless, and I do like having that available in both metals. Now, the Meteoras come in 8 mil, 10 mil, 12 mil, and if people demand it enough that this comes longer, Lapas can make me anything I ask him to make, which I do appreciate the fact that he will accommodate any silly requests we have. Now, the Meteoras, you can see, have rings on them. And sometimes that's nice if you are trying to do an anchor and you don't want to deal with chain, quick link, and rings, that it is all assembled on there. Problem is, if these were to ever wear out, you would have to cut them off and work with quick links, chain, and ring down the road. Many, many, many years down the road, but still. You can get them in 1 ring or 2 rings, depending on what diameter you want as well. We got it all. And the idea behind the way we do our product pages is to make sure all the Meteoras are on one product page, so you're not bouncing all around the site trying to find this stuff. Now, some P-shaped glue-ins don't need to be notched. Some other ones don't also need to be, but the manufacturer recommends it. These, if you don't want to be notching, would be, that's a really big one, something more normal. This could just be placed in the rock and potentially be done. Whereas the corkscrews require this to be notched, because if it's not buried, it could have the potential of twisting, and the only thing holding this in is the shape of that, and the only thing that keeps that from twisting is having a notch to be buried like this. Also, if it's not notched, it can create a little gap right there that can catch a rope, which could be dangerous. Now, it's really weird to me when I first saw this that it's a sharp glue-in. It's not sharp, it's just like a hanger. And I was like, that, you can see, they're all rounded. And that's what I'm used to when I see glue-ins. Even this is a 6mm rod of stainless, but it's a rod. This is a sheet of metal that they stamp and then twist this, making the manufacturing process a lot less expensive. But when I realized that all the hangers we have are about that sharpness, what's the difference? However, they do need to be notched. That's an extra step. Now, the corkscrews come in stainless and titanium, which is nice because with titanium, you want to avoid welds, except when you don't. This is a P-shaped titanium glue-in with a weld if you're so inclined to use this. Now, if you bury the weld and it looks something like that, it's probably fine. And you know it's a fancy bolt when it comes with an ice screw cover. All of these hold approximately 0 to 2 kilonewtons without glue. Let me show you the glue we got. One of the biggest hurdles in the adhesives you're supposed to use with glue-ins is the fact that Hilti V3500 is expensive, very expensive. And we finally have a solution that makes that more affordable. That is epoxy, and epoxy is theoretically the best stuff, but there's also nothing wrong with AC100. And the reason we have 2 different glues, they're not glue. This is vinyl ester, that's epoxy, glue. The reason we have 2 different glues is because some are better when it's hot out, and some are better when it's cold out. And that's mainly what I just recommend these for. Now, this is red, this is gray, and this is actually the gray most rocks are. Rocks come in a lot of gray. The color rocks we work with.
One of our favorite glues, Liquid Rock 500, was an epoxy, quite strong, nice neutral gray-greenish color. They stopped making it.
And it used to be made by MKT Fastening. And they stopped making it because they were in the process of making this. The problem is they just didn't make this before they stopped making that.
The reason this one is red is in the construction industry, they want stuff that's easily inspectable and verifiable, and some inspector can go, okay, red, you used epoxy, and just go down the line of thousands of bolts in a building.
When you see red in the rock, you know they use good glue, but you also notice they used red glue, and it kind of doesn't always look the best. So it's kind of nice that we have the single tube, which is where the gray color comes from. We have a very in-depth video about these specific glues. We won't bore you to death, and we've done hundreds of tests with AC100, and it is super good enough until it's hot out. Call me a nerd, but I'm actually most excited about this. Getting spare nozzles used to be a royal pain, and now we have EP800 spare nozzles, and we have AC100 nozzles, because if your glue gels up on you between that hole and that hole, that's it. Your tube is gone. I've actually had to buy spare tubes just because I couldn't get the nozzles. Ask me how I really feel about that. Let's move on to hangers. I'm wondering when to squeeze in my plated steel rant. Everything we have here is 304 or 316 stainless and titanium. But you don't want to put plated steel outside in some arid environments, dry environments. They might last longer than if they were in wet environments, but they eventually will rust and they eventually will need to be replaced. You want to install stuff that will last longer than you. And so all of these options will. If we ever do carry plated steel in the future, it is for people trying to replace hangers on plated steel hardware, because you don't want to mix stainless and plated steel. So just understand, if you ever see plated steel on my site, there will be a good reason for it and lots of disclaimers on there. Now, what's cool is the price we have for some of our hangers are about the price for plated steel hangers. Because instead of telling everybody, don't use plated steel, we just made it affordable. Now, La Paz's 304 hangers are the cheapest ones at $2.50. And Climbing Taiwan's 316 hangers are the cheapest 316 hangers. Now, all this could change depending on tariffs, metal products, supply chain, but go with me. Now, the Alpine hanger from La Paz is technically cheaper because there's less metal. But let's start over here and work our way through, because it looks like a lot of options, but it's just kind of like 4 options with a lot of variation of each one. So we have 2 different types of horizontal hangers. So my SKUs are more complicated. I mean, for you guys to have more variety. Now, if you have one of these, you're going to have a hard time clipping a carabiner in here as well. Whereas this one, you would still have room for a carabiner. Now, why would you want something like this? Well, your rope's not going to get pinched between the ring and the rock. So that's what these are all good for. And sometimes you just want the hanger, and sometimes you want it with a ring. Now, notice these rings are larger than these rings, which are large-ish. Now, the reason we have 3 rows is because we have an 8mm hole, 10mm hole, and 12mm hole, which fits a 1/2 inch, a 3/8 inch, and a 5/16 bolt. So it's cross-compatible between metric and imperial, because, hey, some Americans use imperial, and that's okay. I don't judge them because I'm one of them. Before I get to those ones, let me tell you about Bonnier. This is a dupla, and we got some pretty cool videos on these. And this allows you to put a rope in there, because all that sharp stuff we were talking about, hangers, well, it doesn't have a sharp edge here. Well, you don't have to have a weird looking hanger. You can have a hanger looking hanger that has, well, sort of a sharp edge on one side. But you can, in theory, put your rope in this if you had to. It's also better for carabiners. Just don't whip and it wouldn't be a problem, you know? And then Bonnier has their own hangers, which we wanted to carry the full line, even though these are not the cheapest. They are nice hangers made in Brazil. Now, La Paz was inspired by that design and made it almost impossible to sell those ones now, because these are a better price. And we have 8mm, 10mm, and 12mm holes. We also have it in 304 because that's more affordable. I do think they're pretty nice hangers, and it's nice to have all the options. La Paz does make us specifically 304 hangers because in the USA, we use 304 more than, I guess, anywhere else. 304 stainless is perfectly acceptable if you're not next to the ocean, which in case you should be using titanium, which typically comes on all the titanium wedge bolts we have. I don't know why we have loose titanium hangers. And in case you plan on pulling very hard on things, there is a 6mm thick hanger that we special custom ordered, mostly so we can concrete screw these things down and break things out in the wild, but also for the nerd who feels they want something thicker, because these are typically 4mm thick, except for the Alpine ones, which are 3mm thick. These hangers from La Paz may have also be inspired by the double hold hangers from Romer. And we have them in 10 mil and 12 mil holes. It's a nerdy caving thing. If you know, you know, otherwise you don't need them. So Romer has a unique product that I like to have. This is a ring hanger that isn't just rounded, which is nice, the things that we like about glue-ins. It's curved, so you can actually get a bolt in there rather than having the bolt pre-installed and that slipped over. And we have 8 mil, 10 mil, and 12 mil holes, which are compatible, unless I put an asterisk on the screen, with a 1/2 inch, 3/8, and 5/16 bolt. Tebi, or Tebalon, makes these ring hangers for canyoneers, which is a ultralight hanger, which you can put your rope directly through, and you eliminate the need for rings, and it makes a lot of this obsolete for canyoneers. Now, there's not a lot of metal here to be wearing it down, but the way canyoneers rappel, it's not really an issue. If climbers use something like this, I would be kind of concerned. It's also an 8mm hole because they sometimes use some skinnier bolts, but you also got a 10mm hole. And Tebi is a canyoneer, and so we have all these canyon options. Another ring type hanger that you can put your rope directly into. And I really wanted these badly as a highliner years ago. So you can just thread your rope directly through and be a high. I just stoked I have these. Anyways, this is another horizontal hanger that allows you to put your rope through and do knot blocks with a smaller ring because some of these are large, which might be great for climbing. But for the canyoneers, we've got these as an option. If you just have a hanger, then you have to put a quick link and then a ring on there, and that starts to get it a little more tall, more heavy, more expensive. And so having things like this, or this, or this, or this, make it a lot easier. And Moses has, I think, the lightest weight hanger that we have here for the big wallers who do things with 1/4 inch bolts. That's a specialty product, and we have it. Please do not use 8mm or 5/16 products unless you know how and why you should. Stick with standard stuff like 10 mil or 3/8 and the hangers associated with those. 12 mil or 1/2 inch, those are pretty big and you should probably not use those unless you also know why you're doing that. Let's go over the sea urchins. This hanger right here is the 3/8 hole La Paz sea urchin. And it is the one that we stock an absolute ton of because that is the most common hanger other than the 304. You can see the sea urchins come in 1 ring and 2 ring, 8 mil, 10 mil, and 12 mil. And that looks like a lot, but it's really just the sea urchin. This is a 4mm thick hanger. And we also have the 3mm thick hanger, 8 mil, 10 mil, 12 mil, no 1, 2 rings. And it's really nice to have all of that on a single product page so you can select exactly what you want. And we try to carry enough of stuff. By the way, if you ever need a larger quantity of things that we don't have, we can't always guess what niche weird thing you might need, we can just order that with the next order we do with La Paz. We order at least from them at least once a month. You might not want a single ring because if your rope's going like this and the rock happens to just be right there, that's inappropriate. If you have a single ring on a hanger, your rope, when you load it, will pinch that. And if these are spread out further, then you are just going to be twisting the crap out of it. Also having the same problem. So I honestly don't know why we have 1 ring on hangers, but some people want things, so I try to keep everything in stock. Why do you think they have it?
A situation or two that I could see it being justified to have 1 ring on a hanger if you're dealing with overhanging terrain where you're putting your anchor, and if you're doing some kind of vertical anchor as opposed to a horizontal.
The most common thing you're probably going to use if you have rings on a hanger are 2 rings. We work really hard to have the best prices in the US on all of this hardware and the most variety in a single climbing shop in the world to solve the problems that we saw when we were trying to make the Bolting Bible. Our Bolter Plus membership was our way to give 20% off of our prices to people who are bolting a lot of things. It costs $99 a year because it takes something to fulfill all this stuff, but you get 20% off, and if you're bolting a lot, that will save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars because you guys are the foundation of what allows us to go climbing. The people who are developing crags are really the reason we can go out and go climbing. Those bolts don't put themselves in. And if they're putting in good hardware, it's gonna last a long time. It's way better to go climbing with nice hardware. So we're trying to help with that with the Bolter Plus thing. Someday, if we make it, we can start donating bolts, but we're not there yet. And the Bolter Plus thing is at our cost, plus the credit card fee and the shipping. You can go read all about that to where we make $0 on those orders. So we've been doing giveaways at the bottom of each email, and I think it'd be fun this Saturday if we gave away a Bolter Plus membership. Sign up for our email, and if you miss it, you miss it. But you got to put your name in a Google form so I know that you want that when we pick the winner. I'm actually pretty stoked about the fact that we have wedge bolts that are stainless, that are cheaper than Home Depot's plated steel bolt for bolt, this bolt here. And with Bolter Plus, it's cheaper than Amazon's plated steel. And I just think that's a really great way to get people to stop using plated steel without begging them to spend more money. These are all very affordable. And we have 1/2 inch in 3 different sizes, and 3/8 in 3 different sizes, in 304 and 316 stainless, because we want you to have options. Now, the most common bolt that we anticipate people buying is the 304 3/8 by 3 inch. This seems to be the bread and butter of what bolters are buying. And so we ended up buying 10,000 of these to make sure that we had enough when you showed up. Because there's always that one guy who wants 1,000, and then there's that other person who wants 4. So we want to make sure the 1,000 person needs are being met. Now, there are some differences between the power studs that we had before and the Simpson strong ties. Now, what's cool about Simpson is they're the ones that make these concrete screws that we're absolutely jacked on and love. So I like the brand. DeWalt Power Stud can get confused with Power Stud Plus. And we don't really recommend Plus because we've done tests before and we weren't really impressed with them. They seem to not tighten nearly as quickly. They're less plus. The plus just throws people off, like the Gree. Kick that horse as I go by.
Even suppliers get confused.
We actually had our supplier try to send us the wrong bolts, and we actually discovered it on the invoice before they shipped it out. Crazy. Now, we have double wedge and single wedge. And the reason we have double wedge is because some people think that's important. Now, if you need something to hold better, we'll talk about sleeve bolts in a minute.
Or glue-ins.
Or the glue-ins we already covered. These are things that some people like. Cavers seem to really want them, and so we have them. And Lapis makes a really nice one, which is eventually going to cannibalize the ones we have for Romer, because they're so similar, we don't necessarily need both. I'm not convinced they're any better, but there are people who are very convinced, who put them in rock, under the earth, who are convinced they are better. Now, this is an 8mm bolt. And if you don't know when you should use an 8mm bolt, you probably shouldn't be using an 8mm bolt. But we have them for those who do know. Now, this titanium wedge bolt is the only titanium wedge bolt that is UI rated or even available. And that is from Lapis. And this is actually how we started. A year ago, Bobby holding the phone right now, we spent almost his entire trip trying to figure out more about this bolt. And it was our first time working with Lapis. And that has led to all of this stuff from Lapis. Sometimes glue-ins are annoying and you are in an area near the ocean that needs titanium. And this is a great solution for that niche problem. Now, we are going to be phasing out of the power studs because I can get these for a better price and more quantity at a time. But this is the bolts that we've been testing for ages on Bolt Busters. And this is the one Bobby uses all the time. So if you are going to buy DeWalt power studs from anywhere, please make sure you don't buy the pluses. The reason getting a better price is so important is because I really want this to be affordable, because the plated steel issues I keep bringing up. Please don't misunderstand how the stainless game works. If you have plated steel bolts that are already in the rock and you see that they're a plated steel hanger, don't get all, excited to put one of these on there. You'll do bimetallic corrosion, and that's what the bolting Bible's for. This is just the gear guide. Can you mix 304 and 316 stainless products? Yes. The short answer is yes. Bimetallic corrosion is just not enough of an issue for that to be a problem. If you are in an area that's an issue, you should be using titanium anyways. So if you have a 316 product you really want to use and you want to save money by getting a 304 bolt, go ahead. We have never heard of an incident that caused one to corrode more than the other, which I don't think either is going to corrode unless you're near the ocean. Anyways, moving on. I need to bring up that bolts don't hold you. The rock holds you. So this needs to hang on to the rock. Now, there's a wedge at the bottom of this that expands out over the cone. That is how these work. However, Climbing Taiwan has made his where it has the same nubs on the side of his clip, but he also added these teeth that are on these wedge bolts. And so he has a combination of teeth and nubs, and that is what makes this engage quicker, and he has less slop right here. And so Climbing Taiwan's bolts are actually very nice. He also has a narrow top here, so when you hit it, it doesn't mushroom out. So right now we have 10 mil and 12 mil and 316 from Climbing Taiwan, and we'll be getting some 304. He just texted me right before we shot this that he has 3,000 of them showing up this week at his place. So we will have a more variety of those things later. Now, something to note, if you're used to using power studs, the washer doesn't come off, which means the hanger can't go on without unscrewing the nut. Now, if you're used to that and you grab one of these boys, it's fine, it's great. It's a feature, not a bug. Just know that, so when you're clipping this to your harness, that you don't like drop stuff. It also has the washer can come off as well. Something to know if you are a prolific bolter and you want to know those little nerdy details. Let's get to the concrete screws. These are the Titan HD concrete screws from Simpson Strong Tie. That's a mouthful. These are the concrete screws that we have used for all our temporary, very strong anchors to hold all of the hydraulics that we use to break bolts. We didn't even make a video until last year, even talking about them, because we didn't think, I don't know why we didn't do that. I guess we didn't think about doing them because they were in every video already. Anyways, they're incredibly strong. This 3/8 concrete screw is basically stronger than almost every hanger we ever attached to it. And so I really wonder why we have this, but it's not because you need the strength of the concrete screw more than you need it to engage with the rock better. So if you are putting this in some softer rock, you could get away with using these big fat concrete screws. This is 316 stainless and 304 stainless. I don't imagine too many people needing this, but I want to make sure that we have 316, 304 in every option that we carry. Whoa, is that plated steel? You don't even carry plated steel hangers to go with this, Ryan. Yeah, it's temporary. Bimetallic corrosion doesn't happen in a day. You can use these if you're trying to develop an area and trying to figure out if you like the spots before you do a thing, or you're trying to build a temporary anchor before you build all the permanent anchors. Caving, canyoning, these can be used. They can be hand placed. You do want to introduce some water into there for some lubrication, but we've never placed them by hand because we have drills.
I place them by hand regularly.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
You've never done that with me?
No, because we're always industrial scale. I'm not like wandering around the top of a cliff where I don't want an extra tool.
Oh. Now this is where bolting gets confusing. It's not rocket science, but when you take a 3/8 inch wedge bolt, you can take a 3/8 inch hanger and they work wonderfully. But if you take a 3/8 inch concrete screw and you take a 3/8 inch hanger and you order a bunch of them and you're about to go to the crag and you don't practice the night before you go do anything, you're gonna get there and go, what the hell? 3/8 will fit on a 3/8 hole because this is designed for also 10 mil as well. And so if you spin this, you can get it on the hanger and you can see how well that fits in there right there. You don't want to hang on to this and start drilling like this, because if that bites and grabs that hanger, this thing is going to start spinning and you could potentially really hurt your fingers. We recommend just using a 1/2 inch hole because that flange fits really well right there. And that is the amount of space behind there. And the amount of force you're putting on there is not going to be pulling that through. The problem with 1/2 inch is this is good for 12 mil and 1/2 inch, 12.7 mil. This is more than 12.7, and so it cannot go on there without upsizing the hole. And so eventually we'll get some hangers that are like this that are bigger, which can accommodate this. But just know that if you get a 1/2 inch concrete screw, you're not getting in a 1/2 inch hanger without upsizing that hole. The 6mm thick hangers that I showed you earlier is designed for this, because if you put this guy in some rock and a really fat hanger, you can use our mobile slack snap kit that we were putting together with a Z2R, a truck, or 5 friends, and you can pull tests out in the wild or in your shop if you want to do it on the floor at around 30 kilonewtons. We're going to have that all set up, but this and that thick hanger is part of that, and I was very excited. Moving on to the niche Petzl pulses. These are removable bolts that if you don't know what to do with all that spare money in your pocket, these are great. The 12 millimeter bolts are typically aimed for rope access use that you would be able to put them in and remove them throughout your job site. I don't recommend highliners be using these. I do see them do that when they're doing a single project that they'll rig a highline and they'll remove the bolts because they've never heard of a concrete screw before. And the 8 millimeter pencil pulses is a caving thing because they're already doing something that's probably going to kill them. They just figure they might as well use a bolt that's probably too small for them. The reason they like the 8 millimeters is because it's easier to drill that hole. And if they're only temporarily going up and then they leave their ropes literally forever fixed in that spot and no one ever has to climb it again, a set of these can help them go up. Next, we're going to talk about sleeve bolts. And you've probably have seen something like this out in the wild where you have a flush hex head against a hanger. And what's inside is the nut at the bottom is getting sucked up rather than the bolt getting pulled out. Now, the 5-piece power bolts are expensive, and they're 7 pieces, by the way, it's just something I like to mention. But they are, in my opinion, unaffordable. And now we have a 3/16 sleeve bolt, 4-piece, actually 4 pieces, that is pretty dang affordable. This is a 10 mil and a 12 mil sleeve bolt. Now stick with me, this requires a 10 mil hole and a 12 mil hole, but you're supposed to use a 8 millimeter hanger with 8 millimeter hole, and this 12 millimeter sleeve requires a 3/8 or 10 millimeter hole. We spent like a year trying to get these, so this is actually very exciting. So you can see that the hanger sits on the stud itself and doesn't go over the sleeve. And that is what's best practice, is what I'm told. So now we have an answer on why we have so many 8 millimeter hold hangers. This nut at the bottom has all of these grooves, and so it engages with the sleeve very well, and it spreads out the flanges. And that is what makes that work better in softer rock. Sleeve bolts are intended for softer rock. You can technically use them in anything. Bobby uses 3/8, 3-inch wedge bolts when he's working in granite. But there are people who want, and some people who need, sleeve bolts, and it's really nice to have something that is affordable. Another fun fact is these 10 mil sleeve bolts accommodate a little bit thicker of a stud, and so these ended up being quite a bit stronger than the 5-piece power bolts, just from the nature of having that extra 0.5 millimeter to work with. What I appreciate about Climbing Taiwan is he does so many brake tests in the wild, which is a lot of work, and he posts it online, which is a lot of work. And so as somebody who has spent a lot of time doing that, I really appreciate the fact that he does it. And so I believe he understands what makes a good product and what doesn't. He also develops. He also knows what makes a good sleeve bolt. He also knows what he likes and doesn't like about wedge bolts. Let's go over to the quick links now. How are you going to connect things like this to the hangers unless you have a quick link? And so we actually have quite a few quick links here. Some are pretty long. And I know this looks quite like the titanium ones, but these ones are the stainless steel. The titanium ones we covered earlier are part of the titanium sets. If you want to have less components in your system, you could go straight from the hangers to this, to a ring, which is available in 3 different very long links that we have. We also have a short and long 8 mil quick link from Lapas and a 10 mil quick link. Now 10 mil quick links, by the way, this one's rated for 50 kilonewtons. And all of these are rated for, that's also rated for 50. Okay, this one's rated for 35. Now it's nice that Lapas proof loads every single quick link he makes up to 6 kilonewtons before he sends them to us. Now Climbing Taiwan has 2 different kinds. He has the normal length quick links that are in 304 and 316. 8 mil quick links are going to be the most common size you grab. You don't get a 10 mil quick link because you need it stronger. You get a 10 mil quick link so you have more room to clip, more material to wear down, because these are ridiculously strong. That's pretty silly. I get excited about this stuff, but we finally have a high strength 6 mil quick link that's long, and you can actually put an 11 mil rope in here because it's the only one that has enough room to fit, and this is rated for 22 kilonewtons. This is a high strength one. They do not all come this strong. If you buy something this diameter, 6 mil, from Home Depot, it will not be this strong. You want it to be at least as strong as the rope you're clipping to it. But we also have 7 mil, 8 mil, and 10 mil for long quick links. Now, Tebalon, our Canyon buddy in Taiwan, also makes 8 mil and 10 mil, and for now we continue to carry them They're standard quick links. Now, if you really feel like the UIAA rating is important to you, you can pay $20 for this piece of paper. And it's also rated for 50 kilonewtons. So we do have a UIA rated quick link if you really care about that. Now, you can't get a UIA rating on a 5mm quick link because it's so small, but not very many people need a 5mm quick link, so we only carry one from camp. Now, keep in mind, Petzl and camp products, I cannot include in the Bolter Plus thing because of MAP, or minimum advertised price policy. I cannot discount the big brands. I can discount these things because I work with Climbing Taiwan, La Paz, Bonnier, Titan, and all those guys on being able to price this stuff for you guys the way I like. Mayan Rapide is quick link in French, and that's obviously not a very French sounding way I'm saying that. This is the only one of those that we carry because it's aluminum, and it's so strong for what it is. I think it was twice as strong in our pull tests than it was rated for. This is absolutely wonderful when your ascender doesn't have a second hole big enough to clip to, or you want an ultralight quick link for something on your harness. I think this is awesome to have, and nobody else I work with makes an aluminum quick link. They have been for years the standard in quick links, but they're expensive, and these are also very nice. This is definitely lighter.
Wow.
And I think they're the same strength. So these will get you up a rock, but what will get you down? We have all sorts of anchor components, so you can make a variety of anchors. And even though it's just chain, ring, and a couple open options, it's surprising how many variations you can have. Now we have rings that could be the master point of the anchor you set up, but that is a closed system that you would have to untie to thread your rope through. And so we're real big fans of open systems, which is something that you can clip to and not have to untie anything. And so we have mussy hooks, and then we have sometimes, these are in stock, they're hard to make, double-gated mussy hooks, and some ram's horns. We'll get into this in just a minute. Now, if you are setting up permadraws, we have some steel cable permadraws, and we're going to be getting a more variety from Climbing Taiwan. These ones are from La Paz. These have some very nice carabiners from Austria Alpine. These are carabiners from La Paz himself. The gate's a little bit stiffer, but you can also make stuff out of chain, and this wire gate from Climbing Taiwan, and this is very stiff. We joke it's a locking wire gate, which I kind of like depending on what you're using it for. But if you're doing like a 513 plus and you got to clip the thing, maybe it's not the one for you. Or you want to make your 513 a 514, this is how you would do it. Now, if you show up to a climb and see a ram's horn, it is an awesome open system where you can put your rope behind that. And when you have a rock behind there, it's not going to come out. You typically have a backup thing as well, which would be something like this below it. Bobby likes doing it that way. Or you would have a second one. But what's crazy is the puzzle required to get it to thread on whatever you're putting it on. Now, what's going to make this have a nice tight fit is if you have a 10mm thing. This glue-in, got it. You want there to be a tight tolerance, so it's obvious that it's not just booty.
That was a very suggestive gesture.
Yes, booty.
I mean, that very much looks like...
Yes, I was thinking that, and that's why I got distracted, and that's why I stopped talking. Because I was like, do I need to reshoot that? No. You can get this to fit on 8mm chain, but you can see how easy that is to slide on and off. But if you put it on 10mm chain, there will be that tight tolerance for it to be anti-booty. Show, don't tell, they say. It fits. It's going to be a ram's horn masterclass when we're done here. It fits on some 8mm quick links. It fits on not the 10mm. But if it doesn't fit on an 8mm quick link, that's an 8mm long link, you can, of course, thread it on there. And of course, you're not going to have the tight tolerance, so you'd have to thread on a 10mm. We have a 10mm and 12mm ring from La Paz. These are stainless steel rings. One of these is forged, I believe. And we are getting a whole bunch of forged rings from Climbing Taiwan. So strong that we could not break them with the red shackles that we break with everything, because you can't fit a bigger thing in that ring that would be stronger. It was crazy. So we're pretty excited about those rings that are coming. Now, what fits on these? Well, if you take a standard 8mm quick link, you're not going to get a 12mm thing inside of it unless you grab one of these long 8mm quick links, and that will fit. A long 8mm quick link that'll also fit, but then of course the 10mm quick links will fit the 12mm ring. The 10mm ring, 10mm rod that makes the product, will fit on literally anything. So that one's easy. This is a nice open system. This is a mussy hook, or a tow hook with a climbing gate on there. And you can just clip right into it and be lowered. ideally 2 of them, right? But there's a nice wear point right here. There's a lot of metal to make grooves out of. And ironically, one of our most popular videos was how groovy can it be before it's dangerous. Brakes right here, spoiler alert. This isn't for the strength, this is for the wear. So this will be on more popular routes, something that is going to see a lot of rope rubbing it. Now the problem is if these are ever set at a point where somebody can climb above it, if they were to fall, I don't want to hurt my thumb, people have come undone before and they have died from it. So it's not common. It's not something you should be placing down here, but it is obviously happened, therefore a risk. And so sometimes we can get our hands on these double gate 304 stainless. Now that prevents the rope from coming in and causing that problem. Now this is stainless and you'll notice this is not. Well, this is a wear part. This is something that you would see on an anchor and people would use it and then you would lose it after you get enough wear. This is not going to be on a crag more than 1 to 5 years and it's not going to rust or even rust bad enough. This would be the sacrificial anode and the bimetallic corrosion going on and it's fine. There's so much metal there. The rope's rubbing this. This is awesome. This is more awesome. Now there's less wear material on these spring hooks compared to a mussy, but that is a wonderful option for some anchors. Obviously there's more to an anchor, like 2 of something. Screw down, not up. So we have 8 mil and 10 mil 316 chain. And we don't have 304 because you'd have to spend more for less corrosion resistance because it's not as common of a product. And you can mix 304 and 316 all day long. We have a really nice chain cutter at our shop. And so we cut these in 1 link. I don't know who needs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 links pre-cut. So you can just order what you need if you want and know what you want. If you don't know what you want and you just want to buy it by the foot, we also have that. This 8 mil chain does not fit on 10 mil quick links. 10 mil quick links fit 10 mil chain. Now stick with me. 8 mil quick links fit 10 mil chain. All of them. But wait, 7 mil long quick links fit 10 mil chain. And 6 mil long quick links fit 10 mil chain and 8 mil chain. If a quick link and a carabiner had a baby, it would look like this. And so we got 2 of these from Romer. This is 10 mil and 12 mil, where you can screw down so you don't screw up and then close whatever you put that in. And apparently this doesn't fit on 8 mil chain, but it does on 10 mil and it has this anti-theft pin right there. So lots of options. It's pretty cool to have all this stuff. Let's go to the next thing. I can't tell you how hard it was to find a 12 millimeter drill bit that worked with a bolt I was trying to use years ago. And they're very expensive. Until now, we have 2 types. Generic, and this is a perfectly good 12 millimeter drill bit. But some people really like name brand. If you're gonna take one drill bit deep into a cave, you want it to be Bosch. We have the name brand drill bits as well. The part that goes in the drill counts as part of the length of your drill bit. And so a 6-inch drill bit only has 4 inches of what you can stick in the rock, which is really confusing because this is a metric drill bit, but we use inches for everything else. So if you are going to get some of the longer glue and bolts, you are going to want these longer drill bits. You are not going to be able to get that thing in if you only have this. Now the crossover bolt holds really well without glue until it cures. And that is a nice feature of it. But sometimes it's so hard to get into the rock that if you use a 14 millimeter hole, that's 1.3 millimeters, bigger than the 12.7 millimeters they want you to have, then it slides in very nicely if you don't have it in an overhanging thing. The glue is going to hold that thing at full strength if you're using quality glues. But the 14 millimeter drill bit's pretty nice. You don't want to have to go up to a 5/8 inch hole, which is 16 millimeters, when you could just a little bit make it bigger. To be all American, we got imperial sized drill bits. 1/2 inch, 3/8, 5/16, and 1/4 inch. And this drill bit right here is $6-ish, and the same exact drill bit, same brand, everything is $12-ish at Home Depot. So these are like the best prices we could get for SAE drill bits. Ironically, our metric generic drill bits are cheaper than our SAE drill bits, which is funny. I don't think any store in the US has that. So you can use a 3/8 inch drill bit to put in a corkscrew, but you could get a 10 millimeter drill bit a little bit cheaper, and then the holes just a little bit bigger so you can get a little bit more glue in there. You don't want too much glue, but we got a video whole about that. If you can't tell, I want to make sure we have everything you need if you're going to go bolting, and that includes tools. But I feel like this video is already way too long, so we're going to not show you all of the tools and gadgets we have for people who are going to go bolting. Like, we have gloves that should be $40 that held up longer than my $50 gloves. They're $5. We got tons of stuff like that. We'll cover that in another video. I do want to show you some anchor configurations with some of our favorite hangers. One option is to just have quick link, chain, quick link to ring, and you could go with a 10 mil setup or an 8 mil setup. Or you could do, and here's a redundant open system where you have the ram's horn up high and it's backed up by one of the snap hooks directly connected to the hanger and just one quick link. Or you could go with, or you can have 2 mussy hooks, or 1 mussy hook and a snap hook, or 1 mussy hook and a double gate mussy hook. There are so many options that you can do with the different components that we have. Now, there's one more thing I want to show you. Practi bolts. I never really told you about our plastic bolts. They never corrode or rust. They're actually great for being able to practice different anchor configurations, doing demos, classes, or playing around. They're a great gift, whatever. We've got a bunch of them coming because they were popular before. Now, if you just trust your life to bolts and you don't install them, the Bolting Bible is for you, so you better understand what you are trusting your life to. Head on over to the quiz to see how well you did and get some store credit if you get the answers right.